Brian or Denise, do we have the PowerPoint in our binder? I cannot recall.
Yes, it's in the, there's a hard copy in everybody's binder.
Look behind the last tab of the notebook.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we are back live on the air whenever Chairwoman wishes to come out of recess.
And we'll need to take another roll call as well.
Okay. We're ready to resume, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chairwoman Floyd Huggins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Albright,
Here.
Commissioner Colson,
Yes.
Commissioner McLawhorn, Commissioner McLawhorn, can you hear us? Okay, I see him saying yes, but we can't hear you, but I see you're here.
Yes.
Okay, got you. Commissioner Nunley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward, it looks like she is off camera. Commissioner Perkins Williams.
Here.
So we are just missing Miss Ward.
I'm coming.
Oh, there she is. Everyone's present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, Dr. Rankin.
Good morning. Good morning. You ready for me to start?
Yes, we're ready for you to start.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, again, good morning, Chair Huggins, Commissioners, Mr. Elliott. We appreciate the time today to talk about the capital needs of Pitt County schools over the next several years. Also with me in the next room are Deborah Baggett, our finance officer, and then from facilities, you have Matt Johnson and Aaron Erickson, all of which I believe you're familiar with them. Okay. All right. So first, just what we're going to go through is the next couple slides are dealing with items that have already been approved by the county commissioners a couple months back. We're all in the phase, either bid phase or negotiation phase, or in the process of getting these next several items started. So just kind of a little recap for you on where we are with that one. So we have the school bus cameras that were part of this, and this is all goes back to like a $4.6 million fund, I guess, that was coming out of Article 40 and 42, the sales tax fund balance. So you can you'll see where that money is going here, and that the school bus cameras, that installation will occur in about a year from now. That is being bid out. It will be bid out probably next 2 months. You can see there, about having to get into new software packages and servers and things of that nature to make bus cameras work. So we're in the process of doing that. Next, we have the Walcoats Elementary HVAC and electrical. Those items will be done this summer, summer of 2021. We are in the process of replacing several fire alarms. You remember over the last 2 years, we've already replaced, I think that number was 7 last year. This year, we've got 4 being replaced. They're at Bethel, Falkland, Rose, and Welcome. And those have already been awarded. You can see there who they were awarded to. And that is occurring or will occur this summer as well. And then we have just the camera system upgrades at all of our schools. You're looking at the changing all the old IP cameras, or changing to IP cameras and replace the analog cameras. That will include getting new servers installed as well. And that'll start in the fall when we come back to school and finish in the spring of 2022. Continuing on, where we've got the Aiden Middle School replacement, the paving replacement for the bus loop. That'll occur next summer. Also, at Walcoats, we'll be replacing the fire alarm there next summer as well. And then you can see some more upgrades that'll be occurring next summer, summer 22, for our fire alarms. That's at Aiden Grifton High School, Farmville High, and Wintergreen Intermediate. Any questions on those projects? Those are already been funded, and those are in the process of being done. Mr. Elliott, should I take questions as I go or wait till the end, sir?
I'll defer to the chair on that, but I would pose a question. Does this expense the total 4.6 million or a portion of it?
I think this is a total 4.6 million. Matt, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
We'll take questions as we go.
Okay.
And do we, Brian or Janice, do we have any hands up?
I don't know how
Don't
to
see any
put it.
hands at this time.
Thank you. Move along, sir.
Yes, ma'am. The next item is part of the LOBS 2021 funding package. That, again, this has already been approved by the county commissioners, and that's really only one project for us, and that is the A.G. Cox Middle School project. You're aware that this was funded several months back. We are that's a $12.25 million project where we'll be replacing the 1936 wing, which is the front area of the school, which also houses the media center and the office area. We will be adding, and I'll show you a picture in just a second, more classroom space, redoing the office area and the media center as well. You can see this is a 22-month project, and we should be starting next week. So we hope to get some equipment out there and start getting shovels in the ground, so to speak. So that'll happen and be done the following Christmas of 2022. This is one of those projects where we'll have kids on campus while we are moving forward. So I think that actually adds a little bit of time to it. If we go to the next page, you can see there's what the floor plan will look like. Everything in blue is going to be new. You can see on the bottom right-hand side, you kind of see two buildings that look alike. That's going to be a first and second floor in that building. It's because it'll be a two-floor building over there. The other areas in blue are walkways that'll be enclosed, covered and enclosed. Then you can see on the far left, you'll see the admin unit. That'll be that's kind of where the new library, the current library is
Technology
sitting.
building for PCC. Are we saying there's capacity within Article?
Am I good?
Can you hear me now?
So on the left, you'll see the unit admin. That's where the current media center is. So will be the new admin, and that'll be the front of the school. That's what the new school will look like as far as the floor plan goes. That also will have obviously new queuing lanes for parent drop off and bus parking and staff parking as well. All right. Next, this is the next set of projects are really this list is created of going back from starting with the 2016 LOBs that we had. That first list we put together. Some of those items are still on this list, plus the last 2021 DPI facility needs survey that was turned in just a couple months back. I think it was done in September of 2020. These projects, we're kind of just spreading these out. This has not been formally approved past the first year of where we are. The Board of Education will also see this proposal again today. But these are not in any funding that's been provided for roofs or bleachers or painting. So I'll go into that detail as well. So for next school year, the 21-22 projects listed. The first is just a chiller system overhaul at 3 schools. That'd be Wintergreen, South Central, and Northwest. The directions go in there, get a little more detail on which chiller it is, but you can see about $135,000 that need to be replaced there. The next 3 items plus 3 on the next page are all dealing with House Bill 90. Okay, so which, if you remember, we talked about this several years ago. House Bill 90 was the class size compliance, the class size reduction bill. that was put in place probably 3 years ago. So all of these are dealing with that, plus just growth in the county, in certain areas of the county. So we'll talk about that. Creekside, about $5 million. That will include 12 classrooms to replace 12 modulars as well, or to replace 6 modulars plus 6 new classrooms. That'll be 12 total classrooms. We're going to Creekside. Eastern, 3.3 million is dealing with class size, the House Bill 90 class size compliance. That's 8 classrooms. Elmhurst is 4 classrooms. Again, House Bill 90 is here. And I'll come back and reiterate about House Bill 90 in just a minute. On the next slide, you see, again, they're the House, Ridgewood, W.H. Robinson, and Wintergreen are all dealing as a result of House Bill 90 plus some mobile units we're replacing. But that total of that, all those House Bill 90 the House Bill 90 class size compliance issues is $24.5 million. A couple years ago when we first presented this, it was about 21 million, 22 million. Obviously, things have gone up in the last couple of years. If you remember, also 3 years ago, there was a discussion of a state bond for school construction, public school construction. That original bond had about $21.5 million in it for Pitt County. The last bond that was discussed, again, none have passed, none have gone out, but the last bond that was discussed only had $15 million for Pitt County. So even with the bond, we're still anywhere from up to $9 to $10 million short of just following the House Bill 90, the class size bill that came out. So that's really what we're looking at. That's really priority 1 for Pitt County schools. That's the first thing we're going to have to look at as we move forward. Those 6 schools plus some chillers, which are going to need to be done. Okay, and then also for next year, Mr. Barnett,
Dr.
you have,
Laker,
yes, sir.
Before you go to the next slide, I think Commissioner Perkins Williams has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
I think she's muted.
I'm sorry, they had remuted me. Thank you, but my question deals with some sides before that involving safety and school safety. When you said you were putting in cameras, is that for all of the buses?
Yes, ma'am. Those are inside cameras. For all the buses, not stop arm cameras. That was a law that came out at some point. This is just for the cameras inside the bus. And those will actually be automatic. Once you pull into the bus loop, they can automatically upload to the school servers. That's every bus. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And the other question that I had involving safety, I'm very interested about children's safety. The fire alarm, I think it was about 3 or 4 before you got here. Fire alarms and fire safety things. I know that there are some old schools over here, and the fire alarm, does that mean that you've already done the ones over here? Because the schools that you had on here are newer built schools, if I'm correct. So I want to know, does that mean that these real old schools that's been up for maybe 40, 50 years, they are already done?
I do not have the list in front of me of this. We did 6 or 7 last year. I don't have that list in front of me, unless Aaron, you know off the top of your head. But we have done. This will get us to about a little over half or 20, about 20 of our schools will be updated.
Well, see, what I was looking at was the school, and these are newer schools that you are putting in the fire alarm systems. And the longer you wait on the older schools, I'm thinking it'll take even more money, because you look at a school like Pactola's and what else is old? Belvoir Elementary. Belvoir Elementary has been there for 100 years, I guess.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit when you see the half lifespan of some of these buildings coming up, but. Matt, or Aaron, you there? Do you know when Bethel or Belvoir was actually done and where that is in the replacement cycle?
Belvoir's fire alarm was done last summer.
Okay.
That's what I want to know, because that's a real old building.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Williams, what we've done is we've prioritized the buildings based on the age of the fire alarm system in it, not necessarily the age of the building. Because
Okay.
upon the insertion of fire alarms in the buildings, the school system has been updating those and replacing those as it's gone along. And we all know that the fire alarm system is not going to necessarily make it the 50-year lifespan of a building as technology changes, as code compliance changes. So as we continue to move forward and as that continues to grow, we have to go back and look at, depending on the age of the actual system, not necessarily the building.
All right. Thank you. Because is this being publicized? Because I know I would get some questions as relate to folks' children. That's what I was trying. Another reason I was asking that. Why wasn't any, is this a publicized event?
I mean, I don't know that we actually put it out. I know the school itself knows that they're doing a fire alarm replacement, or we did one last year and that kind of thing. So our schools can actually help that with their actual student body and parent concern that, hey, this was done last year or we're scheduled for this year. That kind of thing is mainly the way that it's publicized.
Okay, because I do know that, but we haven't gotten to that yet. There was some issue about Belvoir and paving, I think, and some emails I received earlier. All right, thank you.
Okay. I think we were finishing up AG Cox, going into, we just finished up House Bill 90. And the next section should be proposed fiscal year 21. There you go. Thank you, Brian. And this is going back to, on a yearly basis, we get $1 million for capital improvements. I think last year was $1.33 million. And this is actually addressing that list. And I've got a chart on the next slide that'll break that down to you. But, and that's really how we paint and do some other things within our buildings. You'll notice this year it's actually $6 million. And you're going to see why as we get through there, what the request is and why it's jumped up. And you can see the fire alarm systems. We're requesting additional money for the fire alarm system from $100,000 to $145,000. Also, the cost of vehicles from $25,000 to $31,000. Then a couple new items at the very bottom of the page: science labs, as well as some athletic facility ADA compliance issues we're going to need. But the big issue right in the middle of the page is the roofing problems we're having. In the past, we've spent about $440,000, if you see that right in the middle of the page. And then if you look just to the left of that, you'll see $4.6 million. That's actually being requested for our roofs. That is going to actually affect, the biggest thing is J.H. Rose High School is going to need about 80% of its roof replaced. And that's probably close to $2 million, I would guess, Aaron, if I'm right. And then also A.G. Cox, Aiden Griffin High School, Aiden Middle School, Epps, Conley, Farmville Central High, and Farmville Middle, Grifton, Walcoats, Welcome, Pactolus, and Bundy also are going to need parts of their roof replaced. So I think in the presentation, you actually see those schools listed there for you. So you can see we have, in addition to Rose, you have another 12 schools that are going to need some roof things looked at very closely. So before I go to the next year, any questions on that, specifically that one slide there that's on that request there?
Chairwoman Ann Huggins, can I ask a question on the roofs?
Yes.
Dr. Linker, does the school system have any type of schedule or CIP that shows obviously you have the location, the age of the school, but do you show the age of the roof, the condition of the roof, and do you have any type of phase plan to know between now and the next 10 years out which roof needs to be replaced? Rather, it looks like all this is hitting us all at once at $4.6 million.
Yes, we do. Aaron, would you like to take that?
Yes, we have a plan. It's by what's called a roof section, which is typically a wing of a building, and it shows when it was installed, the expected life expectancy of that section of the roof, and then, when it would need to be replaced. And then we monitor based on existing condition, number of leaks we're seeing. Some schools outlive their roof expectancy by 5 to 6 years. Others are missing it by 1 to 2. We're well past the warranty phase on all those roofs, but if it's a 20-year roof span, some roofs start showing age and needing it in the 16 to 18-year lifespan. Others are lasting 25 to 30, just depending on the conditions that building sees related to wind, sun, things like that, tree coverage. But we do have a plan. As far as the roofs go, though, we receive about $440,000 to $450,000 a year in roofing, and we would need to look at that number is not necessarily keeping up with those needs. We're looking at a number closer to $750,000 to $800,000 a year in order to maintain and not fall behind going forward.
So is the 440 part of the capital 1, 2, and 3 $1 million allocation we give you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I guess it'd be easier for us if we knew we needed to raise the $1 million to $1,250,000 or something, and to be able to allow you then to move forward like that rather than getting hit with a $4.6 million roof menu of roofs. It'd be easier for us budget wise.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it would need to go to about 1.8 from the 1.8.
So Scott, are you asking, should we get a report saying, okay, we have 9 schools with roof replacement within the next 5 years or 2 years or whatever? Would that help us in planning and budgeting, looking at and keeping up with the repairs or the condition of our schools?
Yeah, that's where my line of thinking is headed.
Okay. So Dr. Lincoln, do you hear?
Yes, ma'am. We can do that.
Okay. Thank you. You may continue.
All right, moving on to the following year. And again, this is just the items that need to be addressed over the next several years. We just divided these out. In some cases, based on where we are with the building, based on growth we're seeing, but these have not been actually approved or put in order by the Board of Education. So we're just kind of putting these as placeholders for the next 5 years, just to, as you said, Mr. Elliott, just to give you an idea of what's on the forefront. Okay. First, D.H. Conley, construction of a new 2-story building in the back of the building next to the other 2-story building we have. That would actually move the media center and then also add some classrooms. We would also convert the media center into some additional classrooms. It would also allow us to renovate the old 1969, the original building, the 1969 piece, as you can see there, with 35 classrooms, including CTE and science lab space, which is actually the front couple hallways of the building, 100s and 200s of that building. Generators, we've seen over the last several years with our hurricanes that we need some generators, specifically at GR Whitfield and Grifton, and also additional one at Facility Services, which is kind of where our district operations center is housed during those kind of those storms. And then that's that year. Then moving on to the next year, you can see 23-24. You have Grifton, which is a K-8 school, basically renovate the 100 wing and the 200 wings, which is constructed before 1970. And you're going to see that the idea of everything is actually, 50 years or older on this list over the next several pages here. So that will include multiple classrooms, admin area in the media center and the cafeteria, as well at Grifton. Hope Middle is the only one that's not the 50-year-old or plus building. You've got basically just the growth in that side of the county is obviously we've all seen the growth over there with the number of houses. So just 8 new classrooms in that general area is what we're seeing over the next 10 years in that part. North Pitt, renovate the original building, very similar to what we just said at D.H. Conley. which is, again, 30 classrooms, the CTE rooms and science labs, admin areas, as well as the gym and locker room. Again, same as that part of the building, just like DH Conley. Moving into 24-25, the Pactolus cafeteria area, plus replacing of a couple modular buildings that are out there as well, and just change that. The cafeterias, you all been out there. I know Ms. Perkins Williams, you've talked about that with me a couple times about doing some work in the cafeteria as well at Pactolus. And then something I think we really need to start looking at is our outdoor athletic facilities. In most cases are not ADA compliant, don't meet any ADA guidelines. I know we've removed some bleachers, added a few bleachers, but I think in our budget, we have about $50,000 a year for bleachers. And one set of bleachers is, even inside, that only does about half of a middle school gym, $50,000. So doesn't come anywhere near actually replacing or fixing up the bleachers at, say, you look at Aiden Griffin or Conley. If you've been out to Conley recently, you can see the size of the bleachers and the size of the school don't match. And then, of course, all the other high schools have some areas as well. And this is not all football, but it's other outdoor sports as well. Moving on to 25-26, I think that's going to be the next slide. Some Aiden Middle, the electrical work. Replacement of the main switchgear for so we can get more capacity there, well over $1 million. And then come back to Chicad, the phase 3 piece, which would actually be the demolition of the old 1929 site that still sits out front. And if you remember, Chicad still has a, I think it's a 12-unit mobile unit that's been there at least since I've been here, a lot longer than that, but renovate, add 2 additional classroom wings, 16 more classrooms in that area, plus the outside ball fields as well. Next, does that take us? Okay, that takes us to the 5 years. This last slide is really just an idea, as you mentioned earlier, Scott, of just the half-life of some of our buildings. And you can see all the buildings there that have 50-year-old sections or more. I think I've shared this slide before in the past. So you can kind of get an idea of how old the buildings are, what areas need to be renovated, things we'll be looking at. I'm not going to go through all those. That's really just for your information, so you can have that, Mr. Elliott, and then kind of see where we are. But also, we'll get together and get the roof organized and get that to you as well. Additional questions, Chair Huggins?
Are there any hands raised?
None that I see.
Okay. No, I don't have any, Dr. Lincoln.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, also. Next we have, Brian, do you want to go back to the not recommended or other considerations, or do we want to wait until after Pitt Community?
I would say it looks like Dr. Rouse is ready to go. I'll ask Dr. Rouse if he would like for me to control his presentation or if Rick Owens will be controlling it.
I think either way, Rick has it prepared to present if necessary.
Then I'll let Rick share his screen and you guys can take over when you're ready.
Thank you. First of all, good morning, Madam Chair Floyd Huggins, and also to the members of the Pitt County Commissioners, and also to Mr. Elliott, the county manager, as well as the county staff. We certainly appreciate the opportunity today to talk a little bit about our projects that we would like to present to you. We also thank you for your ongoing support of Pitt Community College and the funding of the necessary facilities and programs that we have here at the institution. Today I have with us also Chair Gary Evans and our Vice President Rick Owens, who will present this presentation. We also appreciate Commissioner Ward's service as liaison to the PCC board. She's been steadfast in her support in being at our board meetings and understanding what Pitt Community College is all about. And last year we were in the planning phase of talking about a joint meeting between the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Trustees at Pitt Community College. However, we had a little thing called a pandemic that quickly changed our focus for a while, but I like to keep that on the radar as we look forward to, once we come out of this pandemic, to kind of have the two boards to meet so that you can get an update of what Pitt Community College is doing. This past year has been challenging for everybody. It's been challenging also for Pitt Community College. It's been challenging for our students, and we have made the best of it that we could. Back in March of last year, we pivoted to the process of what we call remote learning. We never closed during this pandemic. We were open, but we were operating in a different mode. We operated remotely and was able to continue to educate and empower our students. During the pandemic, we also were concerned about our students that were less prepared for college education. They did not have the infrastructure at home, whether it was a computer that was adequate or whether they did not have internet connectivity. All of these things were of a concern as we switched to remote learning, but we were able to issue out hotspots to those students as well as laptops. We also increased our Wi-Fi on campus. We did all we could to assist with those students, but we know that it is imperative that we get students on our campus so that we can have the in-person training for those that may be lacking the appropriate infrastructure. Also, we've continued to support our workforce by continuing to have various workforce development programs. We're increasing and adding new programs as we go. And we're also looking forward to when we can bring all of our students back to campus. And at that time, we'll, of course, need facilities to work with those students. One of our major focus is to continue to work with the workforce and to help our companies to continue the phenomenal growth that we've seen in pharmaceuticals and other companies, and to prepare students and graduates to enter into those occupations. So as we prepare for that, we thank you for your support. And at this time, I'll have Vice President Owens to present our requests. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning. We'll go ahead and dive right into it. You'll notice that the requests are similar to years past. This is just the brief overview. The one thing I do want to note is that item number 1 under the 2020, 21, 22, and then the item number 1 on the workforce technology building, that planning, the design cost there is only if the design is done separately from the workforce technology building. If we receive the full funding for, or LOB funding, or however we do it for that workforce technology building, the estimated cost of construction is about $17 million. Just a brief overview of the workforce technology building. We are still looking at about 56,000 square feet. The 18 million, as I mentioned, includes the 1.5 for design. The purpose of this building is shifting entirely to the labor demands that are part of the economic growth of Pitt County. It includes the flex lab space and training spaces that industry is asking for us, the increases in cybersecurity, simulation, game design, the sterols with the pharmaceutical, life sciences, advanced manufacturing. And it also allows us to expand the PCC, Pitt County Schools Technical Academy collaboration. As far as that building goes, it is serving existing industries. and helps to encourage the growth and expansion of those. It does help to attract new businesses. There are some significant retirements anticipated within the next 5 years, especially in Eastern North Carolina, but as we're seeing nationwide. In our current technical training facilities are at capacity. This includes the pharmaceutical space out at I call it the old prep shirt, but at north of the river, and then the facilities that are here on campus. We've just reached the point that it's like several of our health sciences programs where we're having to admit fewer students than are applying. And that's with the facilities running day and night for the most part. And then there is the critical need to train the existing and future workforce. As far as the economic development goes, the majority of the jobs that are being created require at least a minimum of some sort of certificate or an associate's degree. And these are the projections over the next 5 years of job growth in Pitt County that do factor in the pending retirement. So we're looking at roughly 2,000 jobs coming to the county that are going to need some type of associate degree or certificate that we can offer. Then diving in, we do still have the Leslie building roof replacement. This one is still estimated at roughly $200,000. Again, it's one of the 4 buildings, I think it is, on campus that have asphalt shingles. And those were put in on, I guess we're 25 years ago. Wow. So, and then the Redrick building chiller replacement, we are looking at possibly using some CARES funding for this. We're waiting for approval to see if that can actually be done. Part of that would be actually expanding and improving the airflow quality, and doing some UV light remediation to reduce the chances of COVID spreading within the building. The biggest thing is that the cost during summer, if this unit fails, we would have to bring in rental units, and those are pretty expensive. The HVAC controls upgrade, we still do have several buildings that are connected by dial-up for the building automation systems. So we're looking at getting these upgraded so we can fully tie in and work on the energy savings and utilization. If these flow like other buildings have, this will just about pay for itself in scheduling and energy efficiency.
Mr. Owens,
Yes,
Mr. Owens, may I interrupt?
Yes.
I want to say good morning to Dr. Rouse and to you also, and thank you. I want to ask, do we have any raised hands? Janice, Brian, any questions so far?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. You may resume.
Thank you. The interior door lock replacement, we did complete the first phase of that one last year, and that took care of several buildings, but we do still have roughly 650 doors. That's down from about 1,000-ish that need to be replaced because they have the mechanical key, or the door locks cannot be locked from inside of the classroom in case something goes on. Again, these are a little bit more pricey than the home door lock systems just because of the ADA and the safety codes. But it would allow the employees or students in the classroom to secure it if there is a violent incident taking place on campus. The exterior door lock, similar reasoning. What we're looking at is right now, the only way to lock the exterior doors is in person. This would allow us to put in some automated systems. We would be moving to The pandemic helped us a little bit in this one and moving to the model that we would move to with this one, where there are only a handful of doors that are entry only on the building. It used to be that when the majority of the buildings were built on this campus, it was, you know, let's go with the shopping mall mentality. Let's create the doors as close to parking lots as we can. This would be a little bit of shift in the culture to where you would have almost like Pitt County Schools has done, where you've only got the one or two primary entrances that are protected a little bit. But then this system would allow us to, if there is something going on, to go ahead and lock the building down. But it can also tell us on the exit doors if those doors have been propped open, or if it's late at night, we can check remotely to make sure that they hadn't been left open or unlocked or anything like that. Then just a quick overview of what we are looking at as far as campus expansion goes. We are underway with the Eddie and Joe Allison Smith Center for Student Advancement. Those bids back in October came in significantly high. Steel tariffs, uncertainty with the pandemic. There were a huge number of factors that came in on that one. So we're doing some redesign on that building, but do anticipate starting construction on it later this year. Then you can see over on the right side of the screen that future home for the Workforce Technology Center. The placement for that one is getting it right on Reedy Branch Road, kind of on the edge of campus. That way the individuals who do need that short-term training can come in, access the building without having to trudge through the traffic that is associated with our normal curriculum programs. And then on the far left, you'll see a welding technology building. That one's not even included in this because it's a little bit far out. We're still not sure, looking at those, we're still not sure what the future brings with state bonds and what the funding models there will be. Honestly, I'm just hoping that we'll get a state budget this year. But hopefully the new legislatures, the new folks will be able to work together and we'll get a little bit of movement on the bond funding there as well. And with that, I will not hold up any of your time. I will open the floor for questions.
Do we have any?
There are no hands raised on the screen.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, Dr. Rouse, Mr. Owens, thank you for your presentations.
Thank you for allowing us to bring this to you today, and we appreciate all your support.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Have a good day. Okay. Are we back to you, Brian?
Yes, and I'm getting my screen set back up. And actually looking at our presentation, we did jump the gun a little bit on our order, but I think it worked out in the end. You do have in your presentation, just in case you do want to look at it on a year-by-year basis, the projects that Dr. Linker went through. We do have them lined up by year in our traditional CIP format so that you can see all the different projects for each year. Same with Pitt Community College. They are in your presentation in CIP format if you wanted to look from year 1 through 5 of those projects, which actually is a perfect segue, having them going ahead and present. Our next spot on our presentation is our funding of those particular type of projects on the school and community college side. And where this is a little bit different than the earlier list of funding mechanisms. If you look, you still have your unrestricted revenues, but then we start talking about our restricted sales tax. These are going to be our Article 40 and 42 sales tax, where a percentage of that sales tax money we have to set aside for school and community college capital needs. We did tap into that particular funding this fiscal year. It has its own fund balance, and we did send County schools about $4.6 million earlier in the fiscal year. That did not have any impact on our overall fiscal well-being. It's just money that we have in that particular fund balance, and with them having smaller capital projects that aren't necessarily on the level of going out and acquiring bonds like A.G. Cox Middle School, it just makes more sense to use that fund balance from time to time to knock out some of those projects. So we took that opportunity to go ahead and do that earlier in the summer. And as Scott asked, they're still in the process of spending that money down right now. And I think Dr. Linker went through the projects that they have underway. Our second restricted revenue is our Article 46 quarter-cent sales tax. This is just an additional pot of money that the voters approved a few years ago in Pitt County. Since we kind of started this process, a lot of the other counties across the state, just about every election, there's a new county that comes on board with the Article 46 money. But this is just another source of revenue to allow us to further look at those school capital needs. Then we still have our grants and donations. We have our regular fund balance, reserves, and then we have the bond process if we want to, as we're about to jump into hopefully here in February on our limited obligation bonds. And if Dr. Linker really touched base on the House Bill 90 projects, I'll just interlude and tell you all that if as we move into that discussion, we may have to look at that last bullet point on the general obligation bonds. If we're looking $24 to $30 million of projects, if we're unable to secure any type of funding from the state bond that was $21 million prior to, well, the discussion of it was $21 million prior to the pandemic. So we're waiting to see if those discussions pick back up as we have a new General Assembly coming in. But it is a lot deeper conversation than just listing up the projects that you've seen today. If we are in a place where we do have to move forward with House Bill 90, there may be some other characteristics that we may have to look into just beyond the financial impact to make that money spread around to all the different projects.
Brian, if I can jump in, talking about that last bullet, the GO bond, there's pros and cons on that. If you put that on a ballot, and these are statutorily required requirements for House Bill 90, and the voters vote it down, but yet you still have to meet that brick and mortar need, then the county would be, to some extent, the county's hand could be forced and be required then to go the lobs route. So then you would be taking an action against the quote unquote will of the voters. So in some respects, if you don't think it's going to pass a voter vote, it might be better to go the lobs route. Just saying.
Scott, I want to ask if I'm thinking that the discussion last week on the legislative conference talked about putting something on the ballot that would explain what this sales tax going to be used for, that would help voters understand why a yes vote and what that yes vote means.
Right. So I know Guilford County was talking about that. They've had the quarter-cent initiative, I think, on their ballot 4 different times. And part of the constraints in the legislation when the General Assembly gave counties the authorization to put the quarter-cent sales tax on the ballot is you can't really explain what you're going to use the quarter-cent for, like if you're going to dedicate it towards education or, brick and mortar needs. It just says basically, do you approve a quarter-cent sales tax, yes or no? So I think what the goal of that item was to be able to allow more flexibility in asking the question. Now, we've already asked the question. We got the voter approval, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we're good in that respect. Honestly, what we could use is another quarter-cent on top of the quarter-cent we have to meet, because you're talking about $43.3 million total between Pitt County schools if you go to the 24.5, and that's just the House Bill 90 projects. That's not including all the other projects Dr. Linker listed. And then with Pitt Community College, their workforce technology building at $18 million, 18.8. That's 43.3. So just want to bring that up.
And also, Scott and Brian, and Dennis, I would think that when we have this discussion with our legislators on Friday, I believe that I hope that we will look at all of these capital needs and when we talk about what we want their help on as pushing for monies to come back to Pitt County, that we will really stress these things to them when we meet with them on Friday.
Exactly. Yes.
Are there any last questions?
Get a hand up for Commissioner Albright.
Commissioner Albright?
Thank you. And thank you, Chairwoman. Just following up on what you said, I believe what we're talking about here is, wasn't it last year that we were asking that we not be given these unfunded mandates again? And I think that's a great idea to push this question on Friday when we meet with our delegation. It seems like that voice was not heard at all. If we're being asked to do something like this and with no funding sources other than what we're
well, in terms of the capital school needs, that's always been historically since the 1940s, I think, the county responsibility. And that was traded for something way back then, 80 years ago. I forget what the trade-off the counties, the roads. I think we used to do roads back in the 1930s and 40s. And then there was a trade-off where counties then became responsible for the capital school needs, and the state then took on road building and maintenance responsibility. So historically, we have always had that responsibility, not only for the brick and mortar construction, but also their maintenance thereof of those facilities.
What am I missing? I'm not quite getting this. I mean, it seems like this is somehow different than us taking care of a roof and those kinds of needs. When the state is telling us to add buildings to accommodate a lower class size, that seems to have gone beyond what is normal for what we should be expected to do in terms of building, taking care of our athletics fields and those sorts of things. Many of the items which were on the school's budget, but it seems different when the state tells us to lower class size and then we must build buildings to accommodate that mandate.
I think that creates a great argument to say, hey, General Assembly, create a statewide bond package to address this need, to help us. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Commissioner Albright. Where are we? Brian?
So next is our not recommended projects. And this is the one I was telling you guys earlier. It's not recommended because we think we can include the dog kennel replacements on the bids that we're going out on the animal shelter to complete the project. So technically, we're not recommending it, but we're still trying to move this forward. So this is one of those procedural not recommends, but we're still looking at the project. And then today, you should have received an email from Kimberly. This came in after we had printed out the presentations and the packets, but we felt like this is a new item that we needed to start hitting on the CIP, especially as we've talked more and more about recycling. That was a big part of the budget process last year, a big reason for why we increased the household fee. And then obviously we started off this fiscal year having the conversations about glass recycling, but our partnership with ECVC, we partner with them on the recycling side, and we also help them out on the capital side. And what we did not want from ECVC is the same thing that we've asked to not happen with the school system, is for a list of projects to all of a sudden show up and there's a long bill behind them for us to fund. So we've met with ECVC within the last 2 months, and we've kind of put them on our CIP. And we were able to get some final numbers last week, but these were the 5 capital projects that ECVC is seeing over the next 5 to 10 years. And starting with our baler, this is one of their main pieces of equipment that helps to bale and to crush and to and to consolidate the recycling that they do. We're looking at roughly $800,000 replacement. And I believe this is the original baler from back in the 90s. Next is a compactor, which is right under $30,000 at $29,000. This is another piece of equipment, not as old as the baler, but a big part of their operations over at ECVC. Unfortunately, they were unable to get us a quote on their scales, and this is the scales that the trucks drive across, but I do not think the scales number will be anywhere in the ballpark of the baler or the compactor, but it's still quite a bit. And then finally, just some trucks. We have a roll-off truck and a front loader that they're looking at replacing. We may be able to handle some of those replacement needs as we replace our existing rolling stock at the transfer site. Talking to John, there may be an opportunity for us to pass down one of our vehicles and let them use it based on the amount of work that they would need the vehicle for compared to what we need it for. We feel like that may be a viable solution. But from a CIP practice, it is smart for them to go ahead and put this on the list. So these were the 5 items that you may be hearing more about from ECVC in the next few months, and definitely part of next year's CIP. We're going to add this to the environmental protection section so that you all will have a heads up of future projects that we may need to look at funding a portion of.
Brian, there's a hand up for Chairwoman Huggins for Commissioner Nunley.
Yes. Commissioner Nunley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott, this might be a question for you and maybe and the entire management team, Brian. One of the things that, if it's possible in the workshops that are coming up with budgeting, I'd like to get a little bit deeper into ECVC operations. Maybe if we could explore, where they are. I mean, they're obviously employing people in our community that are need jobs, and we need to be supportive of that. But I'd like to see what these employees are being paid a little bit. Maybe we can look into if we are we're leaning on them to do a lot of work, and the issue with the glass recycling and some of the other things. I'd just like to see if we maybe as a team can just look a little deeper into that relationship to see if it's where it needs to be.
Sure. And the county has a contract with ECVC for the MRF operation. We have a lease on the equipment. And all the equipment is listed on our asset inventory list. So we insure it. We actually have ownership of it. So that's why we've come to the conclusion that we need to be ready when the time comes to know how to have it replaced. There's also a lot of provisions within the actual contract between Pitt County government and ECVC that requires them to share all their financials, all their operating metrics and so forth with us. And we really have, we've had a discussion with them and actually had a meeting with them about that specifically. We've started receiving those even to a higher level than we received in the past. But we can bring a report to you to share that with you. And we realize that at the end of the day, we're going to pay for these things, whether ECVC were to theoretically go out and buy a baler or a new scale or whatnot, because they're going to up the tonnage fee that we pay in recycling, which we obviously had a major increase this year. So, but we can bring those to you and let the Board of Commissioners have a better understanding of what those metrics and those financial measures are that they're operating under. I mean, they are now revealing to us how much money they're getting for all the different commodities they sell. We have a report on the number of employees with disabilities. So a lot of the stuff is coming in. We may want to expand what we're getting as well.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, that just dig it a little deeper, and so we can have a better understanding. I think that would be helpful.
Any other questions? Then the second bullet point, and Mike Taylor if there's any specific questions, can jump in. But we have talked quite a bit here recently about a broadband project. We put an RFP out there. We were waiting to see if we could get some CARES Act funding from the state. And then since we started, there have been some other broadband opportunities that have come up within the county. So even though we do not have a project listing for broadband, it's a capital need based on the infrastructure, based on the cost. And we wanted to make sure that we included that within this process for you to take a look at and review. But I do think we will be bringing more additional information about broadband between now and May when we get into budget workshops.
I think that's a great idea. As the association, has included broadband as one of the top priorities. So I think we should also add it, or as you stated, one of our CIP projects. So yes, more information.
So we've already had our presentations by the school systems and the community college. So we're at our part at the very end where there's any additional questions or direction that you would like to point staff towards.
Okay. Do we have any hands?
I do not see any hands.
Okay. Well, if there are no hands raised, then we're to take that as staff presentations or accept it as presented. I would also like to say that I hope that the citizens will look at the budget schedule that the county manager put forth at the very beginning, and that the citizens will look at that and get involved in the individual department budgets. So when we come to the public hearing, that they will be a little bit that they can engage at all along and not just at the end when the departments have put together a budget. So if some citizens have questions about the school board with the school system and some of the things that they are doing or not doing or not including, more safety as Commissioner Perkins Williams alluded to, that I think this would be a time for the citizens to raise those questions, and then when they get to us also. And I think we're at the point now, Mr. Managers, are we to accept the motion to adopt the plans as presented?
Yes, and now let me defer to Brian a little bit on this. So obviously the CIP will become an element of their overall operating budget. At least the first year for the 21-22 year of it will be incorporated into the adopted budget for July 1. So Brian, we've never taken action at the workshop before, not to say that we couldn't adopt a preliminary CIP. What's your desire today?
At this point, is the board would be giving us the A-OK to take the information that was presented and use that as part of our draft budget.
Okay, so a motion would be fine, would be in order. Again, the official version of it would be via the actual adopted budget for at least funding that first year of the 10-year period. So if the board is comfortable, you could make a motion today in that regard.
Okay. Commissioners, that is what I'm asking.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I will make a motion saying that we approve what has been presented for them to move forward and work on to bring back to us for final approval. Is that what we need?
Yes, ma'am. That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Nunley has his hand up, and then Commissioner Perkins Williams.
Commissioner Nunley?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we give staff directive on moving forward with the plans as presented today. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chairwoman Floyd Huggins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Albright,
Yes.
Commissioner Colson,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Where did he go?
Commissioner McLaughlin, can you
Yes.
hear us?
Yes.
Commissioner Nunley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, do we have any other business that we need to attend to
No,
at
ma'am,
this
I
time?
think you've completed the agenda.
Beg pardon?
I said you've completed the agenda.
Oh,
You're good.
oh,
So no.
okay, I believe so, and we are ahead of schedule too.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, before we entertain a motion to adjourn,
Okay.
can I take a second to thank Denise and Kelly for putting all this together?
Sure.
They're the backbone of our CIP little group that we have, and thank Tim for reviewing it with the departments. And then I wanted to thank Kyle for keeping us on track on today's Zoom call.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for keeping us all on track and guiding us through this process. Commissioner Ward, I believe. I see.
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Commissioner Nunley.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We adjourn. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chairwoman Floyd Huggins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Albright,
Yes.
Commissioner Colson,
Yes.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Nunley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're now adjourned.